What's going on, Jets fans? Welcome back to another video here on Pig City Hockey. I'm finally back from vacation. As you guys already should know, if you haven't already seen already, we will be having an amazing special guest coming on the Prairie Puck podcast on Monday, the one and only Urinating Tree himself, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't already seen the posts relating to this, they're all over the channel, they're on my social medias, and they're also all over the Nolan Hockey podcast, Carter and Zach's social medias as well, so you can go find out all the details. I'll put a link down in the description. Very, very exciting stuff, so you're definitely going to want to be involved within the channel. Subscribe if you haven't already, because it's going to give you the opportunity to ask questions in advance that I can ask if it gets enough upvotes to Urinating Tree himself, and I can ask your guys' questions. So with all that being said, make sure to subscribe regardless of the team that you root for. I'm just a biased Jets fan sharing his thoughts on all things hockey related. Without any further ado, let's jump into this little bunch of Winnipeg Jets news that we have to talk about. And the first thing we have to talk about is the fact that, I was going to say Andrew Copp, but he hasn't, because we haven't got to Andrew Copp yet. Logan Stanley has re-signed with the Winnipeg Jets on a 2-year contract with an annual cap hit of $900,000. This is a great deal for the Jets in the short term, and in the short term as well for Logan Stanley. I saw a lot of people saying, oh, Logan Stanley's going to get a new agent, blah, 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 all this crap. He got protected. You don't know nothing about hockey if you're saying that. Logan Stanley had 4 points in like 30 games or whatever it was. I'll throw up his stats right now. It was very unimpressive. He was a very unimpressive player, very, very sheltered. He didn't get a lot of real looks. He played 10 minutes a game most of the time when he played. He didn't get a real good look at the NHL. He wasn't, some amazing defender. He wasn't even a great third pairing guy, but nonetheless, he was big. He became a fan favorite, and I think there is still potential in his game to grow, so I definitely like keeping him. Obviously, I still don't like the fact that we protected him over DeMello, but that's in the past because we still have DeMello. We got Dylan, and we've got Nate Schmidt as well now, so I don't really care about that. He feels like eons ago when I was angry at Chevy for that, because then he did all that. But point being, that is a good deal for the Jets. You have Logan Stanley now for 2 more years at basically an entry-level deal, while you have Ville Heinola, while you have Dylan Samberg, and all these other guys trying to push for that rookie defensive spot. You also can give Logan Stanley, by giving him this contract, you're not saying he's earned, he's bona fide anything. You're not paying him as a third-pairing guy, blah, blah, blah. You're giving him basically the prospect look. I think this is the right move for the future and for right now, and it's going to be very interesting to see what defenseman takes that spot going through training camp in the next coming months, because we're getting closer and closer to that startup season. It's already getting to the early weeks of August, I should say, so I'm getting pretty excited to see how this is going to all look up. Our hockey season's right around the corner, and as you guys already can tell, I am very excited for this upcoming season. Now, the next thing of news we have to talk about is something that broke when I was on vacation, but I didn't have the time to really talk about it in a video, because obviously, as you guys can tell by the videos I made, I kept them short and sweet so that I could just get out my quick reactions and thoughts to the news breaking. For example, the Jets signing their next 4th-line defensive specialist in Riley Nash. But this is a more interesting, more dynamic piece of news around the Winnipeg Jets, and that is the fact that Neal Pionk and Andrew Copp, as most of you already know, have filed in case of arbitrations. Now, basically what an arbitration case is, if you don't know already, is that the Jets think that Andrew Copp or Neal Pionk is worth this much, and Andrew Copp and Neal Pionk's agents think they're worth this much, and then you have to find an agent to bring in to find that middle ground where they can sign a contract. We've seen this with Neal Pionk in the past. We've seen this with Jacob Trouba in the past, and also with Andrew Copp the last 3 seasons. But nonetheless, very interesting to see this happen, because I kind of had a feeling that this would be avoided, because if it was the fact that if Neal Pionk kind of made sense, because I feel like Neal Pionk obviously wants to stay with the Jets, but because of the flat cap world we're living in, I think the Jets are going to offer him a short-term deal. That was just my thoughts going into it. And then Ken Wiebe came out with an amazing article about the Jets mailbag going into this offseason, where he was asked questions about Andrew Copp and Neal Pionk's current situations, whether or not they'll be with the Jets next season, and their expected next contracts. And I gotta say, what Ken Wiebe said about these 2 players hits the hammer on the head, whatever the saying is. I'm too tired right now, very, very accurately, because he goes on to say that he expects to see a 4-year deal being close, I should say, to $4.4 million average per year for 4 years, similar to what Sam Bennett was just given by the Florida Panthers. Now, this makes perfect sense to me. Sam Bennett and Andrew Copp are very similar players, and now the only thing that concerns me when I hear about that is the fact that I also think a very similar player to Andrew Copp is Zach Hyman, and Zach Hyman was just given a horrid deal by the Edmonton Oilers that I think could really, really, drive up Andrew Copp's, greed, if you would say so. I'm not saying he's a greedy person, but if you're telling me that the Jets are going to offer you 4.4 for the next 4 years compared to a 7-year contract with some team potentially, I think you're taking the 7-year with term, right? So that obviously that's an interesting aspect to look at. I think the Bennett comparison that we've made is much more accurate than what I've seen other people say with Hyman. Even though I've compared Hyman and Copp together in separate videos in the past, I just don't see Copp being worth that. I don't see Hyman being worth it, excuse me. So in the end, I think that this is a good deal for the Jets to go at around 4x4. It makes sense for me with the Andrew Copp brings. If you had to go about 4.5, I think that would be max. I don't think you give Andrew Copp $5 million a season. I think that would be just burying yourself deeper and deeper into cap hell with the recent defenseman that you brought on. So I think 4.4 is honestly 4.5. I would say is the max I would go on an Andrew Copp. Now, the next player we're going to be talking about is Neal Pionk. Now, Neal Pionk, like I was saying, I expect to see maybe a 1-year, 2-year type deal with him before we see a long-term contract be dished out to him. And honestly, I think Ken Wiebe hit it pretty on the head. I can't talk, ladies and gentlemen. I think Ken Wiebe got it pretty accurate when he says that he expects to see a 1-year deal from $4.75 to $5 million for Neal Pionk, because that is exactly what I saw in Neal Pionk for giving him the raise. I think that makes perfect sense. But then he also goes on to say that if they want to give him a long-term deal, similar to maybe the Morrissey deal, they're looking at anywhere between 5.5 to 6.25. Now, personally, 6.25, a little high for what he brings, because he's not a great defensive guy. He's still working on that two-way game, but his offense is beautiful. I think $5 million, 5.5 would be the absolute max I would go, but thinking about like a 5.5 by 5-year type deal, or maybe even 4 and 5.5, or whatever that my number might be, I think that would be very smart for the Jets. Maybe don't sign Neal Pionk for 7 years like you did with Josh Morrissey, but maybe sign him for the next 4 years to kind of fit in with gel with the rest of that defensive core you have with Josh Morrissey already being locked up, Brendan Dillon being brought in on that 3 years left of his contract, and as well as Nate Schmidt, I believe, having 3 or 4 years left on his contract. So I think maybe that would make sense. But again, I'm just a fan speculating. This is going to be a very interesting situation that Chevy's going to find himself in. I don't think either of these players are going to walk. Copp has a really good relationship with the Jets. Even though he goes to arbitration, he does want to play here, I feel like, and same with Neal Pionk. This doesn't seem like arbitrations in the past, so I have a relatively good feeling about these, and I really do expect to see Chevy come out on the strong side. Usually when a player goes to arbitration for the Jets, even other than Patrick Laine, but even then, I still think that deal was really worth it for him. I think that, honestly, the Jets have never really come out looking bad from an arbitration side of things, so I'm looking forward to seeing what happens here. I would love to see a long-term deal for Neal Pionk. Signing him to like 5 years, $5.5 million, I think would be great for this team. That would really solidify our defense, and also just to have him grow more and want to be here for that window, Hellebuck window, would be great. And for Copp, like I said, $4.4 million, 4.5 is the max I would go for, your term. I mean, you're not your term, but still, 4-year term is basically the max I would go as well. I don't want to give Copp a ton of money. I don't see him as a future top 6 consistent guy. He's better as a plug-in type player whenever you need him, because he can play anywhere in your lineup and be fantastic. Overall, the Jets find themselves in a very interesting situation, because you either go and you give the money to Copp, because you think he's your future, you think he's a top 6 guy, or you bank on your prospects. You've got Ville Heinola. Ville Heinola is not a forward, but you have Cole Perfetti. You have Chaz Lucius, who just drafted, who's at least 3 years away. Christian Vesalainen, Jansen Harkins, David Gustafsson. The list goes on. There are tons of forwards that could potentially come and play the top 6 role if given a proper look with the Jets. So maybe Andrew Copp at a high cap hit and a high term is not the best way to go if you're Chevy, but giving that type of money to Pionk, I think, is worth it. I don't think 6.25 is where I would go personally, but keeping him is very important, so I would be definitely okay with around 5.5. But if it comes down to 4.75 to $5 million on a 1-year contract because of the flat cap and RFAing and whatnot, I'm also okay with that too. In reality, the only thing I don't want to see Chevy do is overpay for Andrew Copp. I want to keep Andrew Copp. He's a very important part of this machine that is the Winnipeg Jets, but not at an expensive cap hit that makes him a bona fide top 6 guy. Not when we have players that are already probably going to be better as a top 6 option. Cole Perfetti that'll be knocking on the door within a year as a full-time NHLer. So I think that in reality, that is the best move that they should go with. Don't give Copp a bunch of money. Keep him here on a really good team-friendly deal if you can. Maybe pay him a little bit, but like I said, nothing too crazy. And with Neal Pionk, I think you go and you pay the man. Do whatever you can to try to get him on at least a multi-year deal right now, because that would be very helpful for the Hellebuck window. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Who do you want to see the Jets Jets sign more than the other, or do you want to see them both come back? What do you want to see the value in term being given out to these players? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comment section below, Jets fans. Make sure to subscribe regardless of the team that you root for. Also, make sure to subscribe to Zachary Nolan and Carter Nolan from the Nolan Hockey Podcast, because they are also going to be involved with this Urinating Tree Prairie Podcast episode, and they're also just the co-hosts, so you got to go show them some love. With all that being said, Joe, check out my Twitter and all the other affiliated links in the description below. Peace, love, and positivity to all you beautiful people out there in the world. I will see you guys in the next video very, very soon. Have a great rest of your day, and go Jets go.